So I picked up this older style Harbor Freight planishing hammer a while ago, and I never got around to trying it. I just knew I was going to want it at some point. And ironically, actually, the work on this car would have been a great chance to use it, but it was buried by this car, which was on jack stands. Finally got this car down, put back together front end so it'll roll. So I was able to unbury it, and hopefully I can still make use of it with the last little bits I need to do on the car. So I haven't actually tried this thing yet, but in theory I should be able to take something like this that I've put a shape into, and I should be able to kind of smooth it back out. So the only dies that I have for the bottom are radius dies. I don't have a flat one. So it is putting a bowl shape, which is why I keep kind of turning it around. But it certainly took the initial shape out. So not too bad. So I didn't get the round part quite right, and I think rather than grind everything down further, I think I'm actually just gonna add weld to it and try to keep what's good and only work on the part that's not. Okay, it's not 1,000%, but it's, you know, 99%. It's good enough. So I should be able to use this to trace along and get this as it should be, but I do need to double check after all this work. Regardless, it'll be useful for me for other reasons, but I'm going to check on the other panel and make sure that this actually maintains this depth and doesn't shrink around the corner, which it might. So it does stay pretty close to this all the way through. However, as you get to here, which that also shows us how far off we are, the only thing that is going to make this more universal is if I see how kind of swoops up. If I just kind of let this round off, then that gives me the freedom to keep this radius and follow the rest of the panel changing without getting in my way. Alright, this is something I've been kind of wanting to try for a while now, and figured now would be an interesting time. Basically a profiling die set that should match the shape of the quarter, wherever that thing went. Doesn't want to stay in quite the right spot, so, you know, it wants to spin, which isn't the end of the world, but use some adjustments. These kind of float around still, and then they'll kind of get caught like this and not really do what I want. I also, you can see they're not totally even. And then I think also, especially this side, but both sides of the top need to be beveled so that it'll track a little smoother. Okay, so this ugly mess is just scrap pieces that I fixed to the little piece that sits in there so that it can't really spin around too much. Same thing here. I just took that little rod I had and that little rod I had, and that way it can move a little, but it can't just spin all the way around or anything. So we're getting a lot better. Still a little wavy. Definitely getting closer. And not worried about this yet. I'm basically working my way up at this point. And also here's the panel I made that's going to mate up to it. And this kind of shows you what is and isn't right with, well, kind of both. I do need to grind off these welds from where the body shop welded all that on, because that's causing problems, and I might need to probably remake some of this stuff too, but for now I just want to see how well I can get this. Alright, I took the paint off of the area I need to work on to make it a little easier to get a good flat finish. And I've been basically running the English wheel this way along the panel for a bit now. Probably gonna do right here too in a minute, but it's still like you can feel it and you would see it if it was painted, but it's, man, it's so much better. Lines are still totally off. I did go ahead and begin drawing another template, which will be, this would be the inside of it, like that. But that should be those combination of curves. The only thing about it is I gotta make sure I've got enough of these little air hammer pieces, and then I gotta basically make this whole thing all over again with a different shape. But I think if I do that, you know, then I can get this lined up, and I purposely made it just to end where, as long as the center is lined up, it will show me exactly where this lip should be or shouldn't be. Okay, so this stuff isn't quite there yet, and I gotta figure that out. I've got the, it was super awkward panel. It's really hard to set it anywhere. This does go in, but when it does, it's a little hard to manage, and it doesn't really line up with the quarter the right way, which isn't really the end of the world, but and obviously we still haven't figured that little section out. Looks like that area needs a bit more work, and no matter what I do, this area is never right. But just stay there. Come on. Okay, there, I put the vise on the vise. So again, yeah, we gotta figure those little bits out. This isn't really right. It's actually supposed to be flush and not sticking out. So, like, this whole thing needs to twist, I think. And when I do that, this wants to kind of pop back off. So it's kind of, this stuff's, you know, awkward and tight and whatnot. This panel should fit pretty good, but it's probably going to need a lot of tweaking once everything's together. And this work has just been a lot of templates, a lot of guides, a lot of English wheeling, a lot of hammering, a lot of swearing, and things seeming like they're in the right spot and then putting it together and realizing it's totally wrong again. So a lot of that, but definitely really eager to be over this stage. Alright, today I would like to work on making this piece. Okay, so in some ways this is just kind of our normal templating process. There's a couple key things we need to look out for. There is in here an indentation. We're gonna mark the perimeter of the indentation and then cut the paper so that it can lay smooth. And then also we're missing this corner, which should follow this line up and this line out and kind of taper along that. So we're gonna do our best to mark where it ought to go, and then we also have other cars we can reference off of. There's a hole here, a drain hole that we'll want to put in, and then we need to mark where these need to go also. So I've been thinking about it, and I might do this in sections, might just be easier. So I think I'm going to start with basically like 1 inch up from this line here, so it'll basically be at the bottom of this little thing here. So at the bottom line here, this will follow this. Then it'll tip and tip again. Okay, got our drain hole. I just hit both sides to kind of bevel it, so don't need to do anything else there. So you'll notice if I put a straight edge here lined up with the edge of the table, our line kind of has a slight bow curve to it. I'm not sure if it should though. It's really hard to say on such a panel. It seems like it should just be a straight line, and it's just damaged. Getting a lot closer. So we still got way too much material here. So I wasn't going to cut them myself, but they're cutting, they're splitting, so I may as well just cut them. Oh well. It's alright. Alright. So I basically just, with it all clamped together, just kind of used a hammer and dolly to kind of work this all out. It's close enough. It's good enough. Alright, so this is all fitting really nice. And I did 2 cuts on this so that I could kind of bend it accordingly, as well as marked where that little hole is going to go. And the other thing I'm going to do, these are overlapping, and I'm going to trim them. So I marked a line of where this is actually sitting. And then the other thing I want to do is leave overlap for the flanging tool. Oh, and I almost forgot. We got to put this little step in. I'm going to set it in the vise and hit it kind of along that edge. Try that first. Just a hair. Alright, I put it back in place, and then I scribed this line, which is the bottom line there is where this panel is. So then what we want to do is take our flange tool what I'm going to do is follow this tool along and look for any areas where it doesn't quite fit right, and if it doesn't fit right, we're going to trim it, like right here. I think it needs to get taken down a little bit, or it's not actually going to line up. Some of these spot weld holes along the edge. You can see this gap here. This is what I was talking about kind of the panel not having enough shape in it this way. But I think at this point I'm not too concerned with it. I can kind of clamp it into place as I go. Okay, so that's our panel fitment, doing it the flange style. So technically I don't need to grind these down, they're on the inside and it doesn't matter. but I wanted to because that gives me the ability to hammer and dolly on an even surface, and I also wanted to just see how these look. There's a few that didn't fill up all the way, probably just because I wasn't able to see them as much as I'd like, and so I didn't keep going, but overall, I'm very happy compared to my other welder. Granted, that's not the hardest version of welding to do, but yeah, in general, I'm happy with how this is turning out so far. So, if we were not going around a curve and stuff that made it harder to flange, the flange tool can do a really convenient job. Like if this was a more visible panel, we could basically put a little filler here and it would be really hard to tell. So I'm using this piece of scrap I've been using for a few other things, and I'm just gonna also use it to make this piece. I'm gonna cut it a little big. This is this lip here. Okay, so I decided to go ahead and fill the seam. So, anyway, so I filled this and then ground it back down, and it wouldn't pass at, like, on a quarter panel. I mean, it probably looks okay on camera, but you can feel that it's not 100%. But yeah, it's plenty good. And I decided to do that just for the practice and to try out making it disappear when you do that lap joint. And honestly, if you were just doing a straight panel, it would work great because some of the spots did work really good. It's mostly just these areas where it didn't overlap properly that there's kind of, no matter what you do, you're always working from less than perfect. I went in and did a layer over the top here, but I couldn't get good settings for doing that, so it ended up just kind of being a pointless, ugly mess. That's fine. That's fine. This side, I have a little bit more to grind down to get this flat. And I may smooth this out a little, but it's not really that big of a deal. I just need this surface to be flat because that's what's gonna mate. And then I ordered seam sealer, and when that shows up, I will get seam sealer on there. Oh, and then this little section here, there was a good probably 1/8 of an inch gap between this piece and this piece. And that's a good case example of what that Lincoln can do that the other welders won't do. It's been super nice for like a while now, like a week or whatever. Anyway, I've had the door closed because I've been doing all this noisy stuff. Come out here, it rained on my car, both of them. Not a ton, but just Washington. Alright, I'm an idiot. This is really ridiculous, actually. I was thinking about this welder and how much trouble I was having getting it to work and how none of it made any sense. I was looking into it and everyone was saying, oh, like, you know, the settings chart on the thing's pretty good. So I was looking at it and I was like, I'm gonna measure the voltage on the, you know, the taps or whatever. I just got curious and I started looking at it. It was set up for flux core, so the leads were switched. I just assumed that they had them set up properly because that one was set up properly. So I didn't really look into this one. I just took it for granted that someone else set it up properly. Anyway, so I'm an idiot, and now on the proper setting, electrode positive, it welds great. It welds like this one. It penetrates the way it should. Oh yeah, so much better. See, I can still run a bead on it. Not that I had consistent speed or anything. And I was able to do that before, but the issue I was having before, well, I wouldn't say issue, just the thing it was doing before, is I could weld all day long on the 24 gauge, and it didn't necessarily penetrate super well. I mean, it did, but like, you could tell that you had to, I don't know, pay attention to that. Like, it wasn't, I mean, it was doing okay on the 24 gauge, but on the 22 gauge I was having trouble getting it to actually burn all the way in. This seems to be a lot happier, and it's not built up so high. Okay, a lot of things are frustrating, but this is cool. This is the first time this car has been in the garage. It's not going to be in here long, but it's possible to get it in here now. That's kind of cool. So I've basically just picked an arbitrary mark away from the rust that I had marked in the past as a probably going to cut here. And I'm just trying to scribe it with a razor so it's as thin and accurate as possible. Alright, I trimmed this, which was fun. It caught my grinder and kind of pulled the thing and warped it, but whatever. Got this loosely put where it should be. I took a hammer to that just a little bit, just to see kind of what it would do. And I think I have an idea of how we can get that to work. This seems to be lined up good enough. The taillight goes in. And then I've got this set in a way where, with a little persuasion, I think we're gonna meet up here acceptably. Okay, I got this kind of all set up and I'm just gonna commit. Got this tail light in place, these two closest bolts bolted in tight. Got this copper plate to kind of help me get this done, and this thing sandwiching it together. So right now it's just getting this seam is what I'm worried about. Okay, so I've got this piece in officially, and then I'm gonna work my way down. Up there turned out good. Yeah, this welder's a lot more consistent than that one. It's making it a lot easier to control what I'm doing and keep the heat down, and yeah, that's working out good. Something to note here, if I push that lug all the way, well, at that point it's kind of in the middle when these are all the way to the side. If I go this way to the back, these are at the back, so there's wiggle room, goes right in, happy with that. Now I just gotta try to get the bottom as happily aligned. Yeah, see, notice how all these welds are like exactly the same size, heat. They're very consistent. I just did all three of them. The top one's a little flat because I hammered it, but that's what I'm liking about these welders that I got, is they do this. My other one would be good and the other one would blow a hole. Right after saying that, I blew a hole, but that was my fault. Okay, I've done this next section here. I haven't done all of those, but I've done from here down to here solid. It's gonna need some body working because I'm kind of forcing it to fit at this point, so I'm gonna probably have to kind of make sure I get these lines figured out, like that goes up a bit. But for the most part it is disappearing and it's staying pretty straight, aside from just the stuff where I made the panel a little bit wrong. So far so good. Well, did a couple there and then burned through on that one. Okay, so it's late enough to where I don't want to do any more grinding, so I'll have to grind this tomorrow. See a little pinhole I missed. So I got this stuff. I did some of it from this side and some of it from this side, just kind of based on what was easiest, but what I decided to do was match this line up, and then this is a little long, but I'd rather have this be something I have to redo than everything else, because it's just this piece. And actually, technically, I think I already made a replacement for this, not that I plan to use it. So I think what I'm going to do for this specific section is try to do that where I can get to it a little better, and I'm just going to bend this flat and re-break it at a more correct spot. Okay, so should be basically like that. Okay, definitely burned through a bit more on that one, especially on this side, which is probably a little corroded still. But it's on there. I did one plug. This one's, now that I've readjusted the panel, kind of in the wrong spot. It's not a big deal, but I do want to confirm this stuff before I travel over. So for now, I'm just going to leave it as this. I am gonna get a couple little pinholes I missed, and then I'm gonna have to call it a night because it's too late to grind all this down. But it's essentially in. It's in, and the taillight fits. So the biggest thing now is just going to be correcting whatever mistakes are here in the bodywork. It's not that bad, but obviously if it's all painted like this, you'll start to see all the messiness. So, and this is a lot more critical than that, so I'm gonna do my best to get this body worked out the best I possibly can. Then we get to move on to my favorite piece, the stupid quarter. Alright, so I got so distracted and into it that I kind of forgot to film the process, but grind down the welds. These ones get covered so I didn't go crazy on them, and my stuff doesn't reach in there, so I'd have to grab a certain tool to do it, and yeah, again, doesn't matter. Up here, this is really easy to access, so this is coming out pretty good. It's almost disappearing. This stuff is a little harder to get to in terms of finding shapes that fit in there and stuff like that. It's getting better, but still work to do. Like, if you painted all of this one color, you would see it. You would probably need filler. This is fine because it gets covered by the taillight, so it's not really that critical. You can see this line kind of comes up because I made this the wrong size apparently. If I really need to, I can try to basically make a tool that'll fit right in there and then use that to kind of hammer this back down. But I don't know if it matters enough because I think the taillight covers that too. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, if you're looking from underneath, you would see it, but from a distance, you're not going to notice. So I don't know. I don't know how much I care. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Yeah, so with the taillight in, you can see a little bit there, but it's really not that bad. Did a little bit of wheeling, English wheeling, to get this curve back, and I'm gonna try for like the 10th time to get this part where it needs to be. And I honestly might even just cut it off and put a new piece in. I haven't decided. So I've been making this piece, kind of having a hard time getting it quite right, but I think it's going to be close enough. It's basically this section goes into this other section I haven't made yet, as well as it goes into the section I made before over here. I'm not 100% sure where it's needing to go yet, and then I got to make this missing piece as well, but that kind of works out. So I mean, as far as I can tell, it should go right here. So I have some more tweaks I should probably make, but this one I just lapped them and did some spot welds or plug welds, and then I just kind of did a weld seam. Not the prettiest, but not so important, and you know. Alright, so this is the, this section. This isn't pretty or exact, but I think it's also not quite in the right spot. I might fix it later, but I'll just use this piece that I flattened out. Anyway, it's that much of it, and then I gotta decide if I want to try to make this section or if I want to reuse it. I'm sure I could make it, but it's also one of the things I've been using to try to figure out where the quarter needs to be according to this, so I don't want to change it so much, or I don't want to make it wrong and then just have everything not lining up. So I haven't decided there. Alright, I think I've got the pieces as good as I can tell. The reference I have isn't totally accurate, so it makes it kind of hard to figure out exactly where it should be, but these are going to lap here to give us this section. And then I've got this trimmed maybe a little further than it needs to be. We can add more if we need to, but also it goes kind of behind the fender, or quarter. I did put the little flange thing here, so I can use this as my guide and put them like that. And then I'm gonna leave this outside end undone for a minute because I'm trying to figure out what it's supposed to do exactly. And I can't seem to get something I like with the pieces the way they are, but I might just need to trim stuff once I actually get it together and kind of see it. But that's kind of the idea. So this weld through primer, I'm not sure if I'm using it wrong. It could be. I never bothered to I'll read all of it. Pretty lazy about that kind of stuff. So probably my fault. But I was noticing when I'm trying to weld directly onto it, it struggles, and I'm getting some porosity in the welds and stuff. So I scraped off the parts I can see, and that's helping. Alright, Alright, I've just put kind of 2 tacks on the ends so I can start to figure out kind of the angles and everything this needs to be. Again, this one's mangled and beat up, and we have the other side, but it's a mirror image, so it's kind of tricky mentally for me to flip them around in my head. Definitely need more of an angle, that's for sure. But also it's been through a lot in the last few minutes, so this section here is basically straight up, and then as it goes over, it's almost a 45. So we definitely need a lot more. Trying to get kind of the same thing going. I also notice, I think we didn't get our 90-degree this way quite right, but we'll make it work. Yeah, we're kind of at an angle. Should be like more like that. Now that this is all together, I think the best way to actually get that is going to be forcing this edge up more. Maybe. So I was putting it on the car and I wasn't quite satisfied with it. But comparing over here, if I try to get all that stuff lined up where it should be, put marks in, and it's really not that far off. So I think it's going to be more of a situation of getting that quarter panel right. So I've got this thing all pieced together. Yay! I bumped something and broke my taillight. It's almost presentable. This is really, really upsetting. And then I kind of marked where it was that was happiest. And then, yeah, we gotta correct all of that. Nice thing about these long leads is that I can just work on the car where it sits. So we're going to tack this in place. Okay, well, it's officially in, so hopefully I like it. Alright, so I remade this piece. I used the shrinker stretcher stuff, the stretcher in particular. This is the shrinker, but I used the stretcher to take this, was a flat L, and stretch it like this. But we were also missing some stuff, so I added another piece kind of like this, and yeah, it's not super pretty, but also the taillight covers this piece, so I wasn't really worried about this turning out good. I just wanted to have this line a little better and in a way where I can fill it and grind it and work it as needed. Now I'm working on this. I cut this lip off. It was just getting too mangled and in my way. I have this little piece that I'm gonna put into there. I gotta start on one side and then kind of hammer it and make sure it goes where it needs to go. And I'm leaving it long so I can get this line and trim it, and then I gotta add that piece, etc. Alright, it's too late in the evening and I gotta stop making noise now. So I'm gonna be done for the night, but here's where we're at. So I kind of rebuilt this edge. It's not perfect or anything, but it's way closer than it was when it was just being beaten to death. We're also fairly close here. Could be better, but it's close enough, I think. And then now I've been working on rebuilding this piece. What I did was I added this little piece here. I think I showed. Well, I cut off the lip that was there, so this is just kind of the skin. And then I added an extension here because it was rotten and gone. And then you can see a little bit I haven't trimmed off. I put basically a 90 in L going down and in around this corner, and I put little, you can see where the spot welds are on the back side. And then I'm gonna trim this obviously, and then the next step, in fact, the next step is going to be, well, also I'm gonna, you can see I did a few, but I'm gonna basically do what they say you're not supposed to do and weld on the edge like I did down here so that I can kind of carve it into place. In order to mount the taillight, this goes here, and as you can see, we need basically another L to come off of here and down, going in the opposite direction, opposite curve, to mate up with this piece. Okay, so in the name of just moving forward, I've been working on this thing. I built these pieces, and then I built these pieces, and I've got it kind of tacked in. I've been test fitting it on the car just to make sure it's actually gonna fit the taillight in, and it does. This area is ugly, and I will do something about it, but mostly I'm just trying to get all this in place so I can stop messing with it. Also, I'm pretty sure this thing is leaking gas internally. I've gone through this extra big tank, well, bigger than that style, that I used to have in like 2 weeks, which is ridiculous. I know I've been doing a lot of welding, but not that much welding, and I noticed these little extra valves, when I open them, it settles, right? But then notice, when I close it, it goes up. So, pretty sure there's a leak in this thing. So whenever I'm not actively using it, I'm closing that valve. Something like that. It's not quite where I had it before, but I'll do for the moment. Well, honestly, I think it's close enough for me. Maybe giving that some wax with a hammer might get it into an ever so slightly better position, but it's kind of where we're living now because we're welded in, so unless I unweld everything, which I don't particularly care to do. Okay, so I got this all put as best in place as I can figure. And this is kind of our line traced along where it overlaps. This part, I couldn't get the pen in there, so that's my best guess. It looks like it just keeps going straight on the side of the car. Same up here, can't quite tell, but we can creep up on that. So first I'm gonna try to kind of come up close like that. There's a couple other things I want to fix around here, get this stuff dealt with before everything goes on officially, but I'm ready to move forward. Yeah, it looks like it just basically goes straight down from there. So it's definitely close to where we need it. So got this all more or less where it's gonna be. I tightened this down so it's a little closer. Not the end of the world. I might just leave it a little loose where it sits more comfortably, but wanted to just kind of get this as close to where it should be as possible. And I've got this seam pretty tight in terms of gap. It's a little too tight in some spots, but also this one kind of bows out, and this one bows out in some spots but also goes in some spots. This should all have a consistent kind of radius off of that matches this line. So I think I'm going to pull this back off and try to do a little bit more body work here, otherwise it's going to end up being kind of, I think they hit it in to overlap, and of course all the Bondo there. So I'm just going to see if I can get it a little closer, and I might actually give myself more of a gap here so that I have a little play in fitment. Airbag trick, and got a board back there as a support, and I'm just gonna try to pump this up. I'd like to actually get it further so it's not bending it this way, but we'll see. Definitely did adjust it. At some point I just gotta deal with however it is and move on. But I figure closer I can get it right away, the better. But I'm not expecting miracles out of this thing. Alright, this gap is working out fairly well. When I get these in there, it clears most of it up. I have more, but I'm missing the little blocks for the bottom of them, so they're gonna have to wait. This area is probably gonna require a little attention as I go, but yeah, a lot of this is actually looking pretty good. And this area I think I'm gonna hammer and dolly a little. Real quick, just because there's kind of a dip here and stuff. almost completely out of welding gas. Okay, I'm officially out of gas, but I've got this bit together. I've got all these bits together. I did a little bit of filling in a few places so I can fill it up and work my way down. I got that piece in there, although it's ugly, and this is in there. Everything but this and that is in and done. Got this kind of sealed up. I realized I made this a little long intentionally, but I didn't trim it down yet, and I wasn't going to, and didn't realize that the holes I punched were too low, but that's okay. I worked around it. Yeah, with that backing piece in there, I mean, this is almost where it should be anyway, but with the backing piece in there, there isn't any gap there, so a little bit of filler will take care of that. So I'm gonna work on just kind of cleaning this stuff up, grinding. I didn't get this bit done. I was gonna kind of fill that channel because it's missing a little there, but no big deal. I'll do it later. The welding store is closed, so I can't redo the gas until either tomorrow or Monday. I can't remember if they're open tomorrow. Anyway. Pretty ugly, honestly. Definitely, well, runs in the primer and stuff. I'm not officially done, but I ran out of welding gas, and it might be a few days before I can get some, so I figured I would just coat everything and I could come back to it later as needed. But it's back together. I didn't get everything totally perfect, but it'll do for now. I still need to make this rail. I need to fix this area. I realized after the fact that despite all my checking, I still managed to get this off, so I had to cut it back out so I could move it. It was too close here, and also the trunk lid wants to be like almost touching this, and I keep having to manually shove it over. When I do though, then our gaps are a little more appropriate. We're a little thick here because I was beating on it trying to figure things out, but that's okay. This is all weld anyway, so I might just add more and get it later. But yeah, it's ugly but back together. And the next day I work on it will be probably trying to wrap up all the welding stuff, and then once that's done, tank's good to go, glass is good to be put back in, all that good stuff. So hopefully within the next week I can get a lot of that stuff kind of buttoned up and get it to the point where I can not be done, but be closer to being done. Be close to being done. How's that? All right. Oh no, I didn't screw that connection. Well, you get the idea at least. I haven't welded the tabs onto the bottom for the side piece yet. So, a little finish work to do over there. Glass back in. Interior back together, the pieces I took out to take the glass out. Cluster, mirror, wipers, inspection. Alright, so I've dug out my trunk latch. I didn't have the spring, so I used a spring that was too long, and I did this weird thing where I pulled it over and zip tied it in place, and I just did a test run, just closing it with a screwdriver, and it latched, and then the button up by the seat unlatched it. So here's hoping there's no issues, because if it closes and I can't get it open, I don't have a way to get it open. I'd have to probably go in through the seats and try to unbolt it. So, moment of truth. Look at that. Now let's make sure it opens, because I don't have a key for it. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. It worked before. Wonder if the lock ended up being pushed. No, I think that's locked. Try. That's unlocked. This is exactly what I wasn't sure about. I hear it click. It's just not actually opening. Okay, let's. Wonder if it needs weight on it, or if that's the problem. I need some tools. Alright, I figured it out. This was just too far back, so it was getting hung up. So I could hear it unlocking, it just wasn't opening, and I figured out if I just push this way, then it would open. So it closes. Now it opens on its own, I think. At least it did last time. Yeah. That's what we want. Let's make sure the fuel door still opens. It did in the past, and I hooked it back up. Sick. Okay. All that stuff's working. I think at this point, I'm going to take the cluster out of this car and put it in this car. For two reasons. One, because this one needs it for an inspection, and two, this one, the tach's not hooked up right now anyway, so it's not serving a purpose. And I'm not driving this on the road yet. I don't really want to take that dash apart, but I also don't have a cluster and don't have the money to go buy one right now. So I'll just rob it and probably rob the mirror, and probably, well, I still have to fix this wiper motor. So fix wiper motor, rob the mirror, cluster, put the glass in, tidy up this area. Done. Oh, and the lug for that wheel. While I'm at it, I'll repack the bearings and stuff. So I was digging for something else and found the fuel filter I bought for this, which I really thought I had already changed out, and apparently I hadn't. And now my fuel pressure is as it should be. So that makes sense. Gonna pull this zip tie off and see if it runs properly with the proper vacuum now. Because it wasn't before, but probably will now that the fuel pressure is correct. Well, the fuel pressure is definitely better. It's still acting a little wonky, but I think these computers also kind of learn according to what's happening to them, so but I don't know, it's still maybe not. Probably just is gonna need a few runs. Also, I could open this door because I'm fuming myself out. Whew. Seems like smells like it's running pretty rich. Granted, the O2 isn't hooked up, so it probably has no idea what's going on. Yeah, it still has a bog kind of thing, but figure that out later. At least the fuel pressure's as it should be. So that's one thing. Yeah, see, now when you turn it off, it holds pressure higher than it ever was before. So that's definitely one of the issues with this plug fuel filter. Also, the gas, I've given it a little taste here and there, just to see what it's like, and it's definitely watered down a bit. So yeah, honestly, just fresh gas would probably make a tremendous difference. And I'll probably run some heat, HEET, the wood alcohol that takes the moisture out. Anyway, stuff like that. I'll probably play around, try to get the thing happy, and I might, I don't know, at some point pull the injectors and clean them and do some more general maintenance stuff, but for now I'm just excited that the car works. So